Hi, and welcome to the the No Ceilings podcast on the Turtlesmith Network. What's up, Vincent?
What's going on, Courtney?
Nothing much, just trucking along. We are in phase 2.
Exciting.
Phase 2. So, how was your week?
Pretty basic this week. Just working out, eating
Basic.
right. Yeah, just doing the regular stuff, taking care of the kids, all that stuff. Nothing really too exciting this week.
Okay. All right. Well, this week I've done a little bit of nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just drained. I don't know if it's the time change. It's getting dark earlier, and so it's kind of putting a drain on me and the time frame in which I'm usually up. I'm ready to go to bed. As soon as it starts to get dark, my body is saying,
Right.
it's time to lay down.
Right. It's so weird. It's like 6 o'clock. You're like, why do I feel like I'm ready to go to bed?
Yeah, I'm ready. Give me a blanket. You know? You just got to do what you got to do. I'm with the shits. So... anyway, so today let's just jump right in because we got to get to bed anyway.
Right.
So here we go. Now we want to secure funding. Securing funding is a pivotal step for any entrepreneur. But I want to kind of talk about women and minority business owners who often encounter unique challenges in this area.
Okay.
You know, I think that a lot of times there's a lot of pushback. And so I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. And so I did kind of take some notes on, things that we can do to kind of find funding. Okay. Scott and John talked a little bit about, ways that they could get you can get funding for your new business. You can finance yourself. You can do your own personal finance, or John said that he did lines of credit.
Right.
And Scott said that he would never do that. But also, I think that if you do plan in advance to start your business and you've put this money aside for that, I think that is a great way to do it. But I also think that, the second option was to kind of reach out to family and friends.
Right.
Right? And so in reaching out to your family and friends, I don't want to do that.
Personally, I got a lot of broke family members too. That's not going to have the funding. And the ones that got the money probably not going to give it to you for one reason or another.
No shade to the broke family members out there. Ain't nothing wrong with that. All right?
You broke.
Because he didn't mean
broke.
that.
Yeah.
All right. Because he said that. My thought on that is, unless you're going into business with your family or your friends, you kind of don't want to. We've done the money lending and borrowing thing, and you can have contracts to back that stuff up. But when you have those personal relationships, I feel like it gets too personal.
Yeah, it gets real sticky.
And messy, and I don't need all that messiness. So at the end of the day, that's not an option for me.
Like, I know it probably can't be real quick, but why do you think it gets so sticky like that? Or what can be done to kind of navigate that?
I don't know. Because I'm gonna be honest, I don't have the answer to that.
Yeah.
Because number one, I'm not usually one to loan money, and I'm not asking to borrow none. I'm not. That's just my personal preference.
Right.
That's so that we can always stay on the up and up. And if I do have to borrow, it's not going to be, or loan out, it's not going to be anything more than just a few dollars. You bought me lunch, I'm going to buy you lunch back.
Right.
That kind of thing. That's just, I think that over time, I've had some instances where I've loaned money for, I won't get very specific because I don't want to offend anybody, but I've loaned money at one time to a friend, and they were going to give the money back to me. I never received that money back to this day. And so stuff like that, I just don't want to get into that.
Right.
And so I would prefer that while this is an option for people who would like to do that, that is not an option for me.
Got you.
So what about you?
I don't know. I just wanted to know your thoughts on it because I don't have a problem with loaning money or being a partner, things like that. I think you got to have everything, the understanding and the plan and everything written out and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
if you have a good relationship with somebody, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. What do you think some of the primary obstacles are for women and minority entrepreneurs when they're seeking business funding?
Ooh, man, right off the top of my head, I would say either a lack of correct collateral or just credit history.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think that, you don't know what you don't know. And so they have fewer networking
Right.
opportunities. And so lack of influential networks or investors lowers their opportunity to have access to funding or even early funding and support where they need it. I think so.
Yeah.
But some of the other reasons, lack of representation in venture capital and the high scrutiny of business plans.
Yeah. Yeah.
That really shocked me.
Really.
Yeah.
I don't. I don't think it's really a shocking thing to me, honestly. People are so critical of people, especially when it comes to money.
Yeah.
So I don't really see that being a shock to me, honestly.
Yeah, but you have a business plan, that you have, they've worked so hard. And I mean, even Kaylin, when Kaylin came in for Katie Beauty,
Right.
and she talked about, funding, and, she had applied for a grant and didn't get the
Right.
grant. Like, I'm sure that she has all of her ducks in a row. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No,
And
for
I know
real.
that there are a lot of people out there that have gone through all of the processes and, dotted their I's and crossed their T's, and they still don't have access to the things that they need in terms of getting their business up and running. I think it really just kind of, it says a lot for, minorities and women in business,
Right.
you know?
So, how do systemic biases and lending practices impact access to capital for these groups? We'll get into a few different systemic biases and lending practices in access to capital,
Yeah.
such as implicit bias in loan approval processes, algorithm discrimination, and smaller loan amounts. Now, that's kind of surprising because even when women and minority entrepreneurs do receive funding, they often receive smaller loan amounts or less favorable terms, which can hamper their growth and competitiveness.
Really. Now that's crazy to me.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
crazy.
it seems like I think we was reading a statistic earlier about the housing market with minorities and
Yeah. Dirty.
yeah, the 2019 excuse me, the 2019
Get it out there.
AHS data show that while interest rates for a primary home generally decline as incomes increased, when accounting for race, interest rate.
Thank you, Calvin.
Thank you, Calvin. That was a little small for me. Interest rate disparities exist. Black homeowners with incomes between $75,000 and $100,000 had higher interest rates than white homeowners with $30,000 or less in household income. Across most income categories, white homeowners with primary mortgages had lower interest rates than the highest earning black homeowners with primary mortgages. For example, the median interest rate for black homeowners who made $75,000 to $100,000 was 4.215%, while the median interest rate for white homeowners with household incomes of $30,000 or less was 4.16. Even at the highest levels of income, at above $100,000, black median interest rates 4.169% were still slightly higher than the median interest rates of white homeowners. 4.16% with incomes of 30,000 or less. Interest rates for white homeowners with incomes of 100,000 or more were 3.946, 22 basis points lower than black homeowners of the same income.
That's crazy.
That's statistics, nothing that we just came with out of the air. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
And then we also have less access to equity-based financing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I have a little bit of statistical insight. Studies have shown that minority entrepreneurs are often charged higher interest rates than their white counterparts, even with similar credit worthiness. And I am wondering if that information that you just read, I mean, I'd want to dig into that a little bit more. I know we just
Right.
pulled that up, but I'd like to
Right.
dig into that a little bit more, just to see, if they had similar credit scores,
Right.
what their credit
Because
worthiness
I would like
was.
to just actually see. I mean, those numbers come from somewhere, but just to have a little bit more data, just to be like, okay, I see where that's coming from.
Right. Also, recent data indicates that black-owned businesses receive less than 1% of venture capital funding in 2022, while Latino or Latina-owned businesses receive less than 2%. And so I wanted to know what factors contribute to this disparity. Excuse me.
Excuse me.
The funding disparity reflects a combination of systemic, structural, and perception-based barriers, such as homogenous investor demographics, network gaps, stereotyping, and risk aversion, as well as pattern recognition and investments. And also lower representation and high growth sectors. So a lot of it's very interesting that a lot of this information is, I guess to me, I was just shocked.
Right.
To find that, these are some of the statistics that are really, I didn't realize that I never used any funding. And so I just have to say that for me, while I know that it's happening, to find statistics that actually show that these are things that are happening to minorities and women, it's just really eye-opening for me.
Right.
You know?
I agree with you wholeheartedly because when you're trying to get funding or when you're starting a business, like, do you think if these things weren't true that you probably would have got funding if you knew that everybody was able to just get funding like that?
Yeah, no.
No?
No.
That's just because that's just you, or you had what you needed, or you just didn't need funding?
At the time, I wasn't credit worthy.
No, I'm saying if the circumstances where that wasn't an issue.
If that wasn't an issue, do you think I would get funding? Well, again, no.
No? Okay.
Because I didn't do the work.
Okay.
So again, my idea for the business that I was starting at the time it wasn't a get rich quick scheme, but it was more of a, I need to do this to be with my babies kind of thing. So I didn't know then what I know now.
Okay.
If I were to do the work now to get the funding now, I think that I would do it in such a way that I would be able to get the funding as well as have the credit worthiness in order to do it now, if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Well, another statistic showed that the U.S. Census Bureau The U.S. Census Bureau's 2022 annual business survey reported that 21% of employer firms were minority owned, and 22% were owned by women. Despite these figures, I wanted to know what barriers persist in assessing funding.
Okay. So let's dig into some of those.
And so some of the barriers were limited access to financial institutions and equity funding, which was lower levels of bank lending and venture capital. Minority-owned businesses frequently experience lower approval rates and high interest rates from banks. Venture capital, meanwhile, tends to go to high growth, high tech companies where minority and women owned businesses are often underrepresented. Yep.
Also, more scrutiny and higher interest rates. Studies show minority and women owned businesses are more likely to be offered less favorable terms and smaller loans, even with strong credit histories, as we've seen in the report that I read earlier, due to implicit biases and lending practices.
Yep. That's
and then
crazy.
We have smaller initial funding amounts, and then fewer mentorship and educational opportunities.
Yeah, like programs and resources for business funding are not always widely publicized or accessible to minority entrepreneurs, creating gaps in understanding what types of funding might be available, right?
Right.
And, I think that they have these, what do they call them? Did I put it in my notes anywhere? They have these groups that you can get in, and I cannot, right off the top of my head, I cannot think of the name of it right now. I'm gonna find it though, because I know I wrote it down somewhere.
What was the group designed for?
It's like I want to call it a bubble, but it's where you work with a group of people to kind of build out your business. It's almost like a mentorship program, but there's a specific name for it. And when I was reading, I saw that and I was like, yeah, I've seen that. Like you've seen it in movies where they kind of work with a certain group. I'm gonna find it anyway. Let's keep moving.
So we got our personal experiences and successes and failures. Can you share your journey in securing funding for your business?
So I've shared my journey. I've shared my journey in previous podcast discussions. My journey was that I have never gotten any funding for my business. I was self-funded.
Right.
And that's why a lot of this information is just very interesting to me, because I've never been in a place where I've had to ask for funding. I was able to start up the business and grow it very quickly and get to the point where, it was just me.
Right.
Now, as I've said before, it did get hard when, I started, I got a bigger office space, when I hired people on and had to make payroll, that kind of thing. It did get, sometimes you looking around, and I will say, in all honesty, this is a failure. And this is one of the things that Scott and John talked about. Scott said you make sure that you have enough money to pay yourself. There were times when I made sure everybody was paid and I didn't pay me. And I thought that I was doing the right thing, because I know that these people are coming in and they're working and they had to take care of their families. Now, I did I did end up paying myself. It was just like a small delay on my pay.
Right.
And I want to make sure that moving forward, I never do that again. You know what I'm saying? I want to make sure that I have enough money to pay. I'm an employee too.
Right.
And I got a family to feed, and I'm not doing this for free. And so I want to make sure that I set myself up for success, you know, in the funding department to make sure that all of those things are covered. But of course, again, that was a failure. My business was very successful, but times get hard. And I think John has talked about that too, where he's had some struggles in that. And so I just know that moving forward, when I put things together for whatever the next business venture is, whenever that is, that I follow all of these steps.
Right.
And when I get to this point, I'll make sure that I am covered. And I have that, what is it? What do we call it? There's 12 months. Was it 12 months?
Yeah, I believe it's 12 months. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Make sure you have that and that you're ready to go. So for me, it was a failure, even though my business was still very successful. There was a delay on that. But yes, that has happened to me, and it's not a comfortable feeling either.
Right.
So what about you?
You know, for me, it came with sacrifices.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was a success and, you know, a failure, you know, for me in my personal experience.
Yeah.
Because I had to sacrifice a lot to get what I initially wanted. And, you know, sometimes everybody can't survive that ride. Everybody can't go with you, you know, and as bad as it hurts, you know, you have to be able to drive on.
Yeah.
For the sake of everybody in my experience. But it came with a lot of sacrifice and just having to put a lot of stuff to the side and just really, you know, nest in and dig deep for what I really wanted.
Yeah.
And then other ways I've heard people step out on faith is like using their 401k.
Yes.
That's one of the biggest things I've heard people do in recent history is they use their 401k. They did a lot of these steps before they got to that point, and they worked that job, and they said when it was time to go, they left, they cashed out their 401k, and they cashed in on their dreams at the same time.
Yeah. If you can take that, you know, if you really believe in yourself and you want to take that risk, I mean, I wouldn't tell anybody not to.
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell anybody not to.
Right.
So, okay. Well, let's talk about just a few strategies and resources for women and minority entrepreneurs. I think that it is important to, and I know it's the incubator program.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
I called it a bubble.
Yeah.
The incubator
And
program.
Same tomato,
Yeah,
right?
whatever. Anyway, I think it's important to have community building and like a network group. You know, an industry-specific network group, because I think that people fail to realize, like, there are a lot of people that are going through some of the same things, and you don't know what somebody else is going through unless you talk to them.
Right.
You know, and so those industry focused network groups, such as like tech or finance, can improve your access to investors, and you know, assist you. It's a good way to assist you with, you know, finding, you know, the people that you need in order to get some of the things that you need. I don't think that there is a lack of resources in certain areas. I think that I'm still a firm believer that everybody can win.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, in some way, shape, or form. And if you can't get in, you can't get funding from the person that these people got funding from, but I'm sure that they know somebody. You know what I'm saying? That whoever that investor was, they know somebody that they can send you to or try to help you to, because they want to win too.
Right.
You know, so another way is to participate in pitch competitions. I've never heard of that, but it says many minority and women-focused pitch competitions provide not only potential funding, but also increased visibility among investors. Even like the Black Founders Demo Day and SheEO's Venture Program are tailored to underrepresented founders.
So is that like a elevator pitch competition?
I'm not sure. Can you pull that up, Calvin?
That specific event.
The
No.
SheEO's Venture Program or Black Founders Demo Day, either one. Just curious. SheEO's model to support female entrepreneurs. Up to 1,000 women each contribute $1,100, which is pooled into a fund and loaned out interest-free to local women-led ventures with a social good mission. Funds are paid back over 5 years and then reinvested over and over again. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
What are the I'm curious to know like what the requirements are, but to get in, go there. Anyway, that's cool.
Yeah, that is pretty
I
cool,
think
though.
that if you're interested in this, the website is venturesfoundation.org. So you can take a look there and see if that may be something that interests you. It looks like they have grants on there as well. So just check it out and see what you can find there.
Right.
Another way is leveraging alternative funding sources like crowdfunding platforms and angel investors and impact investors. Many entrepreneurs have successfully obtained funding through angel investors and impact investors that prioritize diversity. Organizations like Pipeline Angels, which funds women and non-binary entrepreneurs, and Impact America Fund, which supports entrepreneurs from marginalized communities, focus on high potential and underrepresented founders.
We also have government and nonprofit grants available. Local and federal grant programs, numerous government programs offer grants and low interest loans for minority owned and women owned businesses. Programs like the SBA,
Yep.
Business Development Program, and Community Development Financial Institutions Fund are tailored to underserved communities. You also have nonprofit support as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of there's a lot of resources out here. And then you have your diversity focused business accelerators, which is like your incubator programs that focus on diversity. And so these incubator programs are usually university linked, and I have seen them. When I think about it, I've seen them on TV.
Yeah.
And like on TV shows. And so they actually have them at universities like Harvard and Stanford and MIT.
Yeah.
For underrepresented founders that provide funding, mentorship, and industry connections. And I think that is really great, but it'd be really great if we had leaders that could offer those same types of incubator programs locally, because everybody can't get into Harvard, Stanford, or MIT.
Right.
And while they may, you may have things like that at your HBCUs, what about the people who don't go to college? I want this information to be able to make it to people who, if college is not your thing, how can we find a way to get people into or create programs like this where people can be in it here locally?
Right.
And if there is information out there, you guys drop that information in the comments. We'd love to know what you're doing in your city or your community.
You have grants and loans that are tailored for minority and women entrepreneurs. You got the National Minority Supplier Development Council. You also have the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. What else we have? We have funding programs and investor networks. Goldman Sachs, Digital, Undivided. Also Impact Investment Funds. New Voices Fund, founded by Richie Lou Dennis. And the Fearless Fund, a venture capital fund created by women of color for women of color. Fearless Fund invest in early stage growth, focused businesses led by minority women.
Yep.
So
I love it. There's so many resources out here,
yeah.
You know, everybody, I mean, just take it, if everybody could just take time and just really, I wonder how much funding goes unused.
That's what I be wanting to know.
You know?
For real.
Because I think that's super important, you know, to find out, because there's so many people out here that say that they can't get funding, but they also don't know where to get funding,
Right.
and money is going unused, you know. And so how can we? I think that what we need to do is figure out how we can really get this information out to
Connect the
people
dots.
that need it, because I think that it's important to get this. I want to get a lot of this information to, you know, people who are watching the podcast that
Right.
are that are really taking notes. You know, I want to, if we can, Calvin, I want to make sure that we, you know, drop some of the websites to these links on there, just to ensure that we can get this information out to people who may not know about it.
Right, because
It's
the
important.
funding sitting there, person's laying in bed at night thinking about where that money's going to come from when it's out there.
Yep, absolutely. There's also one other site that I looked at, and it is called ifundwomen.com.
Okay.
And I kind of glanced over it a little bit, but they have a lot of different types of grants on there. And so I want to make sure that I put that out there as well. Like, I'm not a gatekeeper. I want everybody to know the information. If I find out something, I want people to know, because I believe that everybody can win. So with that, that's the resources that we kind of have today. And so our actionable steps for today would just be to explore some of the options that we've presented, as well as the options that Scott and John have presented, and find options for funding for you. What works for you? If
Right.
it's going and asking mom and dad, you know, that's fine.
Man.
I'm not gonna do it, but that's just me.
Right.
But I would encourage you, if you can do it that way. That's a great way to do it. You know, especially if they're gonna, you know, loan you some money interest free. You know, that'd be great. But that's just never how I operated. I just wasn't made up like that.
Yeah.
So, do you have any other thoughts on funding?
Nah, go get it. Put it to good use.
All right. Well, guys, you can definitely find the information that was presented for funding on our website at turtlesmith.com. And also, we will ensure that any websites that are available from the information and resources that we've provided today are linked in the video or somewhere on the website as well, for you to explore. All right. All right, well, that wraps it up for this episode.
Another episode wrapped up.
Another one in the books. So thank you guys for joining in, and we will see you next time.
Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust.
Another one bites the dust.
Hey.
Another one bites the dust. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Another one bites the dust. Yeah, that's it right there.